welcome to my amazing show, WTF, What's the Frequency? Where each week we have phenomenal guests who have used positive frequency to really change their lives and shape their destiny. Now, this week is no exception. I have the fabulous Julie Jacobs, who is a life coach and career coach for women, and it's all about inspiring women in particular to really change up their lives, meet their goals, and raise their expectations. And Julie also has an amazing podcast, and she is everybody's favourite podcaster called Goddesses Gather Here, which is an absolute hoot, and you must tune into because it's an absolute giggle. And quite frankly, she's riding the waves of positivity with tinged with a little bit of madness to keep us all in a really good space. So welcome to the show, Julie.
Oh my gosh, Vanessa, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here and so honored to be on your show. I appreciate this opportunity to share what I know about vibration.
Well, thank you very much, because I know today we're going to have a very honest conversation, and it's going to involve you being very vulnerable. So I just want to say how grateful I am for that, because I am going to ask you some difficult questions. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't know about you is that you are a recovering alcoholic, aren't you?
I am.
And I
I
really
had
wanted.
I got sober 13 years ago and I work it every day and I haven't had a drink in 13 years, which is quite nice because I'm when I'm drinking.
I love that. I love the fact that you're just so honest about everything. It's such a joy to
Yeah,
have let's
that was a
get
mess.
down to it. Let's get down to it, Ginny. So,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about alcoholism and addiction, because a lot of people come to see me with those problems.
Yeah.
And alcoholism is something that you can slip into very easily. But I wanted to ask you, first of all, just to get everybody clear on what is an alcoholic and what isn't, because I like a drink now and again, and so do a lot of people in the UK. So can you just clear that one up for us?
Yeah, I think of alcoholism for me, it's two things. I have an obsession of the mind. I want to drink. My body is like wanting to drink. And I have an allergy of the body. Once I put that alcohol in me, I'm freaking allergic to it. So then I break out in handcuffs or I break out in bad decisions. I'm very allergic to alcohol. So there are different schools of thoughts, whether or not it is environment or if it is from your family or genetic, there's all kinds of different ways to look at it. For me, I've had to keep it really, really simple. When I drink, if I drink, I will die. That's my deal. Like, that's the agreement I've made with the universe. I won't drink, and then I won't die from drinking.
I like that, though. I like that because it really highlights the fact that alcohol does amazing damage to your body, like phenomenally bad
Yeah.
damage to your liver and kidneys in particular. Not to
Yeah.
mention your arteries, your heart, everything. I mean, I live
Skin.
in skin, pot skin, red nose. I mean, it's not a good look, is it? And
Yeah.
yet, I live in the UK where it's sort of um, one of our traditions to drink as much as we can, as often as we can. And, our country is littered with pubs. So it's really good to hear you say, an alcoholic is somebody that's obsessed with drinking. So if I'm having half a bottle of wine on a Friday night, every Friday night, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just somebody that likes a nice half a bottle of wine as a reward to the end of my week. So
Exactly.
glad
Exactly. There's not a, if you're not an alcoholic, whether you admit it or not, if you're not an alcoholic, you can go out and get pissed. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Like, you can go and, as long as you don't drive or, all that stuff, there's like ways to be responsible. But me as an alcoholic, if I go out to drink, like, one is not enough. No, what is my phrase? One is too many and 1,000 is not enough. So once I start the alcohol, once it's in my body, it is on and I have zero control over my life. My frequency is lower than low. I have no feeling of agency, autonomy, all those things, all that stuff is out the window for me because I'm an alcoholic if I drink.
That's really interesting that you say your frequency is really low when you're in a state where you are drinking quite literally to oblivion, till you can't drink anymore, till you can't get any more down your neck. And your only focus is on getting that alcohol and literally getting it down your neck as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
Oblivion. So, Julie, how old were you when you started drinking?
I think it was a pretty typical high school, partying type thing. I remember when I was really young, both my parents are alcoholics as well, so I come by it honestly. And I remember as a kid, my dad had this big goblet that he would pour his beer into, and it was so gorgeous, and it was amber and the bubbles, and it just looked so appealing. When I got close to it though and smelled it, I was like, oh, that's not for me. You know what I mean? So I had an attraction to it as a child, but I didn't indulge until later in life, maybe like 16, 17, started playing around with it, maybe got drunk once in a while. And then throughout my 20s, I had a job that was very, happy hour was like a thing. Like it wasn't out of the ordinary for us to all be somewhere and all be drunk together. Like it was just the way that it was. It wasn't anything, like
you talk about that, and I used to work in the fashion industry, and frankly, we got pissed all the time.
Exactly. We had part of the deal.
We had champagne when we got to work. We were on shoots. We were always out at private views drinking champagne. I mean, it was just sloshing about everywhere in the 80s, and it was really quite debauched when I think about it now. The state of some of the people that I work for, that were really renowned in their businesses, would be off their faces.
Off their faces. I was at a big, huge event one time where all the managers were in this one location, and I was supposed to be like one of the leaders of this whole deal. And I was so drunk that the CFO took me aside and said, all right, look, you need to chill out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed. And then she was like, forget it. And took me to get a shot. So it was like, there were no consequences. It was like, hey, watch out. But also, this is what we're doing. So you're doing great. So I didn't see my drinking as problematic till much later in my 30s. I was married and I was living in one state. We moved around a lot. I was living in one place, and I had a group of friends that we would like go out and get drinks, or we'd go to each other's houses. So we were always kind of together drinking. But when I moved, I had to start all over, and I didn't really make all those friends, any new friends or whatever, but I sure kept on drinking. And that's when it had taken a turn, and I was just drinking by myself. Like, it's like, good morning, and I'm drunk. I mean, I was like 24 hours a day drunk. P.S. 2 small children in diapers still.
Oh my goodness. I was just about to ask you if you had any children at that time. So how did you hold it all together without social services coming around and rumbling you?
Yeah. I drank to where, because, withdrawal from alcohol is one of the most deadly withdrawals of any addiction whatsoever. And so I would start, if I didn't have it in my system, I would start shaking. So I'd always have just a sip just so I could change diapers. It was in the middle of the night. I thought I had insomnia because I'd have to get up in the middle of the night and take a drink of vodka because of my insomnia, but it's because my body was craving that midline of alcohol to be in my system at all times. Wow. So that is not sustainable. And fortunately, my husband sent me to rehab. He's like, you're going to rehab. And I was like, okay. So when I was there, I was actually able to concentrate on me and why I was drinking, what's the deal with my drinking. And I learned about alcoholism, and I learned about a family disease, and I learned about how alcohol affects your body. But then it was like once I got out of rehab, that was like the work. That was when I had to go. I belong to a program. I'm not going to talk about my program necessarily, but I have to go to meetings and I have to be helped and help other people and all that stuff. So that was where it was like, once I knew I was an alcoholic, I started to learn how to live without drinking.
And it must be really difficult because alcohol's everywhere, isn't it? You go for a coffee, it's like, would you like a liqueur with that? You go for lunch, would you like to see the wine list? You go around to people's houses. Oh, glad you popped round. I was just about to open this bottle of wine. I mean, the supermarket, the corner shop, it's just there, isn't it?
Yeah. And when I got sober, they had I don't know if you've heard of a store called Target. It's like a big American great store. And Target had just started carrying wine where I was living. And I was like, I can't even get wine now at Target because it is everywhere.
Thank God for the dollar shop, because they don't sell alcohol in there. You're confined to the dollar shop. That's it. Exactly. And then you go and buy horrible plastic things from Taiwan to sort of titillate your fancy.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So, something I'd like to just wind back and touch on was, you said when you are an alcoholic, you made bad decisions, and that really your life was out of control. It was sort of happening to you as opposed to, you creating your destiny. So we're talking there about really negative frequency. I get really cross with people when I say, what do you want? And they say, I don't know. Because I don't know is such a cop-out. Of course you know what you should be doing, where you're supposed to be, what your roadmap even forward is. But I don't know, and copping out is really negative. It's really victimy. So how did you step out of that and start becoming the fabulous woman that you are now? I mean, how did you say no to all that drink that was just being thrust in your face all the time?
What really saved is accepting that I'm an alcoholic. Because when you're fighting it, if you can't wrap your head around the fact that you can't drink like other people, that's where there's problems. But once you're able to say, okay, and I read this part of a book, then it just was talking about the allergy of the body, obsession of the mind, and that's what I always go back to. It's those two things. And it just helps me realize every single day, like I wake up and it's like, let's do this day. I don't think about alcohol. I don't think about, not how am I not going to drink today? It's just, but I know I'm Julie and I'm an alcoholic. Like that's like, I'm an alcoholic. Like that's just all there is to it. So having that was freeing for me to be like, okay, now how do I live sober?
Interesting. So for anybody listening that's listening to you and thinking, they really relate to this. I'm waking up every morning and all I'm thinking about is how long it will be till I can have a drink, or I'll get the kids. I had a friend who was an alcoholic, and she said she would get up, get the kids to school, drive them to school, and then dump her car at the station to go and work in the city. And she'd get a coffee and she'd literally have all the miniatures to pour into it, probably about 3 or 4 of them, to get down her neck before she got off the train and went to work. And she had a really duty job. So it's not all about being out of control all of the time, is it? It's about, being able to do quite a lot of stuff while you're out of control as well, and being really sneaky about it as well. I'll pop in my 4 minutes of my coffee on the way to work. I'll do it, chew a load of mints. I mean, it must be exhausting, the amount of work you have to put in to be an alcoholic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's just so many of us. Yeah, it was definitely, and that's for me, like what the pain point for me with alcoholism is I feel very alone drinking. When I was in my drinking behavior, nothing else mattered. I was completely alone. So I did what I had to do. You know, I fed my children. I did what I was supposed to do throughout the day. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have to go to work anywhere. So then I had more time to just kind of, and I would always, not always, but there were many times that I would black out at night, and I would wake up at like 2 in the morning, and I'd be in my bed, my contacts are out, like I'm completely like functioning. I go in the room, the kids are tucked in their little beds, like everything is totally fine, but I have no real memory of the previous like 5 hours.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
It's so
They're like,
scary.
also engaging with your life, not really being grateful for your life, just escaping it constantly
Oh,
into a fuzz, really.
it was just a prison in my own mind. So, you know, that loneliness, what I have now with sobriety is that I know I'm never alone. I'm never truly alone. Like I don't ever have to feel that alone. Um, cover it up, cover it up, cover it up, you know, get rid of this feeling, don't feel alone. I don't ever have to worry about that because I do a lot of work as an alcoholic to not drink. Not so much anymore. I'm not talking about like every day
Well,
I'm working on it.
you talk about not being alone, but is that because you've sort of accepted that there's a greater force at play and you've accepted that force into your life? I mean,
I have absolutely accepted that.
yeah. And I think that switching that vibration from the fear of being alone, from feeling that you're so disconnected and using alcohol as a sort of, I don't know, lovely soft porridge to relax into and put its arms around you by actually reaching out in a different way to the powers of nature, to the universe's vibration, if you will. You've been able to sort of bolster yourself to feel better without
Yeah.
any drugs, without any more alcohol, by just tuning in. So, what do you say? Talk to me about that, because a lot of people, you know, when we have these sorts of conversations, they think we're lunatics, and that's what my
Oh,
show's
sure.
all about. I know, but that's what my show's all about. You know, like, hey,
Yeah.
look, somebody's talking about their story will resonate with somebody, and they'll think maybe I'm going to change, you know, change something. Maybe I'm going to try that and tune in. Talk to us about what your process was and how it came into your life.
Yeah, I got really, really lucky because when I was in rehab, I started going to these meetings, and I only went because it was the only time I could get coffee, because it was like a no substance anything, like no caffeine, no nothing. I was like, ah! So, you know, so I showed up just to get the coffee, but then things were sinking in. You know, it's 28 days in there. So when I got out, I made sure that I got involved in some meetings. And the one that I started with, there was these 5 women, older women. I mean, earliest, our shortest length of sobriety was probably 25 years. Like, so they've all just been doing, and they're like 70, 80 years old. So they've all been like doing it. So when we sat in meetings, we didn't talk about how do we not drink. We talked about how do we live sober. And that's about, for me, who am I around? Who is my support? Are they up here with me? Are they on the same program as me, as positive and like looking for solution oriented type of a person? Or are they down here where I can't really mess with them down there? So I make sure that I surround myself not only in my meetings, but in my life with people that are at least learning about how to vibrate higher, or just naturally do. So many of us just naturally do.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, you know, we all know people that vibrate on a low frequency. They're always
Yeah.
moaning. They're always unhappy with their lot. Nothing's ever good enough for them. They go on a holiday and it's like a disaster. And you think, how can you go to Antigua and it be a disaster?
Yeah,
Surely there was
exactly.
something good that happened. But it's all like moan, 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 moan. And then, you know, you meet somebody that's been to the thing of the day, you know, bought a bag of chips and a cheap and a flag, and they've had the best time ever, you know, and you love
Best
hearing
day.
about it because they just had like a brilliant time. And
Yeah.
it is really as easy as that, isn't it? It's cup half full all the time, you know,
Yeah.
being really grateful. And I guess, you know, a lot of people I talk to that are really happy and joyful start every day with being grateful. Is that
Yeah.
something that you do?
Every morning I say to the universe, every morning, thank you for this day. Please help me be a light. Every day.
And that is something that I think, you know, should have resonance with everybody because on my first episode, I was talking to Greg Becker, who's the director of the Living Matrix film, all about, you know, what vibrations are, how we engage with them, and all that sort of thing. And he
Yeah.
was saying it's about being objective about what you want, you know, being thankful about what you have, and also talking about, you know, what it is that your day is going to be or that you need help with, and it
Yeah.
just coming as a result of that. And
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I was brought up in a really religious family, and I don't really love religion too much. I think it's
Oh,
great
yeah,
if
me too.
great if you're into it. You've got no criticism whatsoever. It's just not for me. I prefer to be outside because I prefer to engage with the frequencies of nature. And I do a
Sure.
lot of earthing and grounding, you know, bare feet on the ground, as above is below.
Yeah.
So I'm connecting in that way. Do you do any other practices that keep you on the straight and narrow? Because it, you know, as you've already said, you're an alcoholic in recovery. You must still be going along to buy the frozen peas, and all of a sudden, a wall of champagne, and you must just think, you know.
You know what I think? Do you know what I think mostly? I have several things I think. I have a lot of thoughts, but when I am at the grocery store or if I am somewhere and there's alcohol or something, my first kind of thought is like, oh, thank goodness I don't drink anymore. Like, just thank goodness. Because if I did, I would be drinking it. Like, they would be like, I'd be drunk. I would be drunk all the time. There was a guy in meetings that used to say, if he could drink, because we have a big thing about as an alcoholic, I can't drink like you. I can't drink like someone who's not an alcoholic. I can't take a sip of a drink and be like, oh, cheers, put it down for the rest of the night, be done with it. Like, we cannot drink like other people. So this guy in a meeting said, if I drank like other people, I would be drunk all the time. And that is it. That is it. So, you know, I don't necessarily, well, I don't know. Go ahead. What's another question?
Well, just before we go ahead, we're just going to take a very short break so that our sponsors can tell us all about the amazing Quantum Gold Card. So stay with us, everyone, because we're going to come back to finish this really interesting and very honest conversation with Julie Jacob.
Ignite your vitality. Meet the LifeSpring Gold Card, a quantum leap in wellness. Revitalize your bioenergy, boost stamina, ease aches, and improve your mental focus. Shield yourself from electromagnetic frequencies emitted from cell phones, laptops, and other smart technologies. Restructure tap water, revitalize food, and harmonize everything around you. Elevate well-being with LifeSpring, made in the USA. Order today from VanessaElston.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody. And thank you for staying with us. I'm still here with the amazing Julie Jacobs, and we're talking about the frequency of alcoholism and addiction. And, you know, here we have Julie, in recovery. I nearly said recovered. telling
Oh,
us. Because you can never say totally recovered, apparently, but still in recovery, living a fantastic life. So we've already talked about what led you to drinking, how easily you dropped into it, and I think we're all aware of how much and how easy alcohol is available, and
yeah.
how it's glamorized somehow. But when I think about myself, in the 80s, schlepping around London, I'm quite embarrassed actually to think of some of the
Sure.
states I was in, sliding down lampposts, falling out of taxis, saying the most terrible things to
Thank
people,
goodness we
probably
didn't have
ruining their
social
lives.
media, Vanessa.
Yeah, oh my God, thank goodness, because it
I
would be
mean, we
coming
would,
out
I
now,
would be
wouldn't
in
it, on
shambles.
Instagram. But, that was a long time ago, darling.
That's
And
right.
we don't see many of those around these days, do we? Said the white, what was it? You know, the not wide mouth frog. Oh no, don't see many of them. So, I can't actually drink anymore because of, I think it's because of my age. 2 glasses of
Yeah.
wine on the cheapest day ever, quite frankly, is enough. But having got through all of this, and it is a really difficult thing, as you've described, your body's screaming for alcohol, you're addicted to it, you're in this really low frequency. But then suddenly having this realization that surrounding yourself with people that were on a high vibe, if you will, were focused on not being an alcoholic, on living, in sobriety.
Yep.
What sort of things did you start doing to switch your life up?
I made sure that I never got bored. Being bored is a big trigger for me. So if I'm like, let's say I'm watching TV, I'm also doing something on my iPad, or I'm cleaning, or it's like I'm constantly in these states of, yes. And and I can also, when I need to, do one thing at a time too, because I don't allow myself to find that one thing boring or mind wandering. It's like I'm able to stay um just kind of always, I don't want to say buzzing because that sounds like drinking or getting pissed or something. But
How about we
there's
just say,
activity. There's always activity.
yeah, because there's something my friends, I've got two friends that are alcoholics. One is incredibly intelligent, he's a writer, he has an amazing command of the English language, and he's constantly bored. He just said to me, most people bore me. My mind works much faster than everybody else's, and I
Yeah.
drink to slow it down. And the other one's a bit the same, really. She's a maths genius who sort of can add up the takings of the city at the end of the day while drinking a cup of coffee and probably knocking back a vodka. So
Yeah. Yeah.
is it about being, I'm not going to say super intelligent genii, but I'm just going to say able to process or have a requirement to be entertained by a lot of information all the time?
Yeah, I do. There was someone in my early meetings, that the ladies I sat in that room with, who taught me just how to live sober, getting through all kinds of tragedies sober. She said, all the, she said, alcoholism is a disease for geniuses. So I don't know how much of that is true, but I do know that the people that I have been in recovery with, the ones that are doing it and staying sober, are very smart people.
Yeah, it seems to be that way. And the same with, drug addicts. It's like the world's not enough for them. It's not moving quickly enough.
Yep.
And there's not enough data coming to them to keep them entertained.
Yep.
So, and also, I suppose it's a huge disappointment because early on you must have been quite switched on. And then being bored of people is really the fact that they're not switched on and they're not expansive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I have
Yeah.
this problem. There's a lot of people I can't talk to
Yep.
about a lot of the stuff that I think, because they think I'm insane.
And that's fine. So that's why we talk to people that are on the same page to support us and build us up in our experience and our outlook.
No, it's a really good point. It's a really good point. And it just goes back to emphasizing that point that you really do need to surround yourself with like-minded people if you're
Yep.
going to stay on the good foot. Doing anything really,
Exactly.
relationships, you know, no moaning, no talking about other people badly, only trying to see the good is what's going to. I mean, I hate it when people say, I just need to tell you something about this person, and they
You're like,
start to gossip.
no!
And I say, listen, you really shouldn't do that because I'm really bad at keeping my mouth shut and I probably will tell them exactly what you've told me. So why
Yeah.
don't you just tell them straight up rather than them hear it secondhand from me? It's like a real lack of honesty, isn't it? It's a real bad frequency. So
Yes.
staying sober is very much like trying to stay on the good frequencies all the time because you
Yes.
can't have anything negative coming in, can you? And yet,
You are in charge of what comes in and what you put out. Like if you're really like wired for sound or like really into the frequency of being up here, then I was going to mention this earlier, but there's a lot of in recovery, there's a lot of shame about. Remember, we were joking about like, thank goodness we didn't have social media and all that stuff. So in recovery, especially in the beginning, there's a lot of shame that can happen. And that is when I found my vibration feeling very low, very negative, when I started to like look at myself and be like, how could you have done this? You had 2 small children and you're a lucky life. And how could you do this to yourself? And so that work then became, therapy and self-help stuff to kind of get me beyond that feeling of shame and just accepting that I am an alcoholic and that's just the way that it was. And this is how it is now. And I had to like really, really, really hold on to these 2 words. Can I cuss on your show?
yeah, go on.
So having all the shame and all that spiral, a psychiatrist told me one time, guilt. And I was just like, really? You can just not feel guilty about stuff? Like once you've made amends or once you've, done your work on it, on whatever the thing is, you don't have to go back and have that low negative vibration of shame. And he's like, no.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It shouldn't define you. You should be able to let it go.
Yeah.
And yet we hold on to it and we revisit it and it feeds the bullies in our heads. And every time we're having a good moment, it pops up and goes, oh, but remember when you did this and you should be so ashamed of it. I remember I got introduced to Lady Diana and I didn't curtsy because I was so starstruck.
Oh my
Even though
gosh!
I'd been taught how to curtsy, I was just like, oh my God, it's Princess Diana. And then for like, I don't know, 20 years, I'd be on the bus having a really nice day and it would flash up in my mind, not curtsying. And the faces of everyone around, looking at me as if to say, well, come on then, curtsy. And I was just like, frozen to the spot in awe of her, So.
Oh my gosh! Yes, yes, that is one of those things.
That's a shame thing. And I have to say, it doesn't define me now. But the shame attached to alcoholism is obviously a lot greater. But it's a message for everybody. You can't go backwards. You've done it. And as long as you've made amends, move forward. And, they often say about quantum, it's not, 1 and 1 isn't 2, it's 3, because everything works in waves. It's always moving forward. And if you stop moving forward, then you get stuck in that really heavy negative energy of shame, guilt, obligation, whatever it is. Yeah. So now you've put all those things into practice, how much more time have you got? Because we've talked about, all the time it takes to be an alcoholic. You must have loads more time on your hands.
Well, I'm working now. I'm not just home drinking. I have my own business. I have a lot. I'm just so busy. I have lots of things going on. And part of that is because the vibration of shame, alcoholism, I'm bad, guilt, that has been acknowledged and released, so that I can have a real open space of high vibration and looking forward to the future and helping other women.
That's great. And the thing I love about what you just said was, it's been accounted for and it's been released. And, what I say to people is, yeah, you've done it, or it's happened to you, but forgive yourself for letting it have power over you. Don't forgive the person, don't forgive the situation, because they don't care anyway. Forgive yourself for letting it have power over you, and then let it go. And people say, oh, forgiveness, it's actually about me. Great, can do that, but can't forgive them. It's like, well, that's fine, because they've still done something bad, but just don't let that have power over you. Step forward.
Exactly.
So I love what you're saying, because it's really in line with, what I think is the way to move through life. And tell us about your podcast, because that really does help women. You have some, I've been a guest on there myself, but you have some other amazing people that really do share some great stories that are help to sort of all women. How did that come about? What made you take to the airwaves?
Well, I am your new favorite host, Julie Jacobs, your favorite host of Goddesses Gather Here. You can listen to it anywhere. You can hear Vanessa on there twice. She was so good, I had to have her on twice. It really came from a place of disseminating information. I'm a life and career coach for women. I can have 3 clients and get information to those 3 people, or I can have a podcast and the reach of the podcast is limitless. Or depends on how hard I push it, or I ask people to push it. Like it's just more ears listening to these amazing women that I bring on that have tips and tricks that will help you. Even if it's, I had a lady on, a goddess on, and she was talking about real estate. She was big on real estate. Not big on, she was a real estate person. That was her career. And what she talked about wasn't like 3 ways to put your house on the market or 3 best ways to decorate your house. It was, she gave us 3 tips to the art of negotiation, which can be applied to any part of your life. So when I have a guest on my show, sure, this lady is a CFO and she's like knows all about money and she might share some stuff about money, but there also is like the backstory of the woman. How did she get there? Kind of like how you're asking me right now. How did she get there? What is her self-care? Because women, we all think that self-care is getting our nails done and going off and like, brunch. And that's part of it, certainly, but the self-care is doing the internal work. And what things do you do? What are the 3 things you do first thing in the morning to help you face the day and live a happier, healthier day?
I really like that, because you touch on self-care, and that's all about self-love. And one of the things I think we don't do as women is give ourselves time, because particularly if you've got children, it's like you get up and it's like someone's fired a gun, isn't it? And the rain starts, and it's like, where's my hockey gear? Where's my tennis gear? You haven't, I don't like this packed lunch. We're making a cake today. You could have told me, Now it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I've got no ingredients. I've just got to do a run to the shop now as well. All of that before you even get to work, and then you're like straight in, no lunch or whatever, because you've got to pick the little darlings up again. And at no point do we say we've just operated like an Olympic athlete. And what do they do when they finish running a race? They have a really big rest. They have a really big sit down. And what do we do? No, we get home, we make tea, we make beds, we get them, drive them around smart. It's all full pelt. And we don't spend enough time just being quiet, meditating, getting inside ourselves.
When I first became a life and career coach, I was specifically working with moms exclusively. And one of the takeaways that I have from workshops is the mama bear eats first. So what does that mean? It means the mama bear eats first. It's like she's not going to go around trying to feed everybody else if she's starving and can't move. She knows that she has to nourish her body in order to take care of these cubs, it's not the opposite of, I have to take care of these cubs, I have to take care of these cubs, I have to take care of these cubs, and then whatever comes from that. No, let me take care of myself, get proper sleep, proper nutrition, proper movement, and then I'm able to help other people. Self-care.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And, you know, so many women feel guilty and they say, well, you know, I took a bath for an hour. Well, is there any other ways to take lots of water in all our countries nowadays? It'd be rude not to take an hour, really, is normally my answer. You know, why it's 1 hour? How much effort? You got up at 5:30 and you're having a bath at 10 o'clock. That's a hell of a long day, you know, constant output and no downtime. And I think a friend of mine who's a gender intelligence expert told me that, you know, women never, ever think about less than 5 things at the same time. And yet men are able to just switch off. And so when we say to them, what are you thinking? And they say nothing. They actually are thinking nothing, which we can't possibly comprehend. No, you're lying. You might be about another woman because, you know, or at least say work, because how can you not be thinking of nothing? Even watching the TV, I'm like, shopping list, you know, what I need to do tomorrow, a couple of phone calls I've got to make. I mean, I'm just never switched off, nothing, flatline, nothing. But it is very important for us to take quiet time and meditate. And
exactly, that's what I was going to say. I am able to, because I know I've mentioned before, I'm busy. I'm constantly, like, my mind's always going. I'm vibrating up here and let's go. But I do make sure, because even in the morning when I say that first thing, thank you for this day, please help me to be a light, like that's a meditation. That's like a setting my day, setting my intention. And then when I go to bed at night, I meditate every single night. I do the same meditations just until I fall asleep. So,
I
you know.
think that's really good advice, because people think about meditation, they've got to go and sit somewhere, cross their legs, spend an hour and a half doing it. It can literally be 4 minutes, can't it? I do lots of 4 minutes to get me back on track. You know, if I'm in London, I hate going there. It's like I don't know, sensory overload, all that noise and all those people. I always end up getting pushed around or something. And as I'm about to turn into, you know, I manage to rein it in and do a sort of, you know, God bless you, peace and love. Everything always works out for me. I'm feeling great. Whatever it is, just get me back and off that, like, horrible vibration of irritation. Or I just want to slap you, really, because you've just got the case over my feet and I've got socks on and you haven't said sorry, you know. That's the biggest issues for you. So you're saying that that's how you use it. You just have sort of phrases that you repeat to get you back on track again.
Yes, definitely. There are one thing that I use when somebody in my life is being a particularly challenging person and I still have to deal with them. So I can't just, like, I don't hang out with you anymore. I say, like, if it's a woman, bless her, change me. And this sounds like a prayer, but it's not. It's just, I want to give this woman a gift from whatever, the universe. And I think I need to be changed. If I'm having this feeling of ill toward her, then I need to change. And while we're at it, let's make sure she gets some good stuff too.
I think that's a really... Yeah, because I was driving through London the other day and somebody gave me the finger and shouted some abuse because I changed lanes. Oh, you know. And I think I probably didn't indicate early enough or what have you. Anyway, it's London. And I just turned around and went, peace and love, baby. Yeah, my friends were like, how can you just switch that on? I'm like, well, if I don't, all that nastiness is going to really rattle me and I'm going to be driving, you know, like this, and it's probably going to happen to me again. So
white knuckle.
Best I just send them on their way with a bit of love, really. And they're more upset that way than I am. So double bubble, really.
That's right. Bless her, change me.
I was telling somebody the other day that somebody shouted some really horrible abuse to me, again in London. And I had my sunroof open. And I did that real thing where you go, sorry, I didn't quite hear that. And they're going, arr. So, sorry, let me just turn down my radio. Didn't quite hear that. That's really, really shouting. And a lorry driver was next to me, and he just looked down in my through my sunroof, and he went, "Never mess with the old bitches, eh?" And I was like, you know.
You knew what was up.
I just can't hear you. Sorry, a bit louder. Anyway, so it is about, if you're on the good foot, nothing really affects you, does it? It just bounces off you, and you see everything as funny. And
exactly.
it's very obvious with you because you're always giggling and roaring with laughter about things, which is just great. And that's what I love about your podcast. They're just so full of fun and without any holds barred, really, aren't they? So, what's next for you?
What's what?
What's next for you? You've got
What's
this
next for
podcast. What's happening next? Surely you're going to be on.
We're just gonna keep on making episodes. New episode every Thursday, and I have season 1 had 68 episodes. Season 2 now has 1. Started today, and I'm just gonna keep sharing bright, smart, loving, badass women with other women. That's what I want to do. I just want to share these women with other women, and they can share them with their friends. And they, it's just, my podcast has so many different guests that there's going to be one that you can relate to. I just today released an episode with a confidence coach. I didn't know what a confidence coach was. I didn't know that you could be taught these steps on how to feel more confident. So I was able to share that today. So that I'm just going to keep on sharing. And growing my business with my one-on-one clients is amazing. I would love to do more. I do public speaking. I've done workshops. There's just it's all very open to me now. I feel it.
I love that. I love the fact that you're, always moving forward. Your podcast is fantastic. Everybody, Goddesses Gather Here, put it on your podcast list. Follow Julie on Instagram. You're on Facebook, aren't you? All the usual places.
The usual places.
If you need a life and careers coach, then this is a lady that really can, springboard you there, because she's done it exactly the same thing herself. She's living proof that her process works. So,
exactly.
Julie, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today and being so honest and vulnerable and quite honestly funny about something that's quite a traumatic subject to talk about. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are quite welcome. And I do find humor helpful for sure. One thing I do want to say about addiction is that the way that I got sober and how I live sober, it's not the only way. There's more than one way to find your path in sobriety. The truth of the matter is there is a solution, and you never have to drink again. You never have to drink again. That's the truth.
Well, you heard it here, everybody. If you are worried that you are an alcoholic, and it is a serious matter, you just heard there is a solution. You don't have to drink again, and there's lots of ways to get sober. So, Julie, thank you so much for that. Thank you for joining us. It's been a phenomenal, very interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.